Welcome in, everybody, to a new edition of Warm Weather Fans, the Sun Belt Podcast. My name is Brian Stone, joined once again this week by Zeke Palermo. We have taken in week 4 in the Sun Belt. We're ready to go over the good, the bad, our individual teams, all of that jazz as we do on a weekly basis. But Zeke, how's it going?
Good. Morale's a little down as you talk about our individual teams with Georgia State allowing the most points in school history, 70-21 loss to Vanderbilt. Excuse me, I wasn't even holding my microphone. I was just talking at the air. So that was obviously a downer. Pretty bad-looking week across the conference as well. I guess it's our turn to be Conference USA. I guess that's just part of the experience. So, obviously excited to talk about it, but at the same time, fairly grim things to be discussing today.
I mean, from like a 30,000 foot view, you and I have mentioned this before, and honestly, we've had people kind of get at us about this, but it's like, this is not a banner year for the Sun Belt. This is not going to be one of those years outside of maybe like one or two teams, two max, one more probable than not. We're not sending our best.
Right.
Like, let's just say that. So there's a lot of teams that leave a lot to be desired once the final whistle goes on Saturdays, and we'll talk about a lot of those. But I mean, just some of these performances are brutal. Like, what are we doing here? Type performances.
Yeah, I take a little bit of solace in the fact that a lot of these teams are in some way or another in a state of turmoil. A lot of teams are still very fresh first or second year coaches. That's maybe half the conference. The other half is guys that are about to be bought out, or, in some cases, teams wishing they hadn't given extensions so they can buy their guys out. So I take solace from, again, a very high level view that this is not a typical year. This is a year of turnover and turmoil and transition for a lot of these programs. And outside of, no beating around the bush, outside of James Madison, nobody looks like a real, everybody looks like pretenders. Everyone that we thought was good or was going to be good, pretenders. Everyone that we thought was going to be bad might actually be worse than we thought.
Be careful. They're going to yell at you for saying that.
Well, they have before, they will again.
All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the positives we did have. Would you like me to go first, or do you want to go first as far as...
Yeah, please. Why don't you lead it off?
Okay, so I have been on this team a lot lately, and frankly, for good reason. Troy beats Buffalo 21-17. Last week I had said I thought Tucker Kilcrease wasn't was on the borderline of even being an FBS level quarterback. He did play better in this one. Still not exactly like lighting up the scoreboard. He was able to use his legs a little bit more, which helped a lot. They did obviously take a giant step down in competition from Memphis last week, who now we know is capable of beating an SEC school in Arkansas, to playing Buffalo in New York. But for me, the final drive was a big boost to them. They're down 17-14. They get the ball back with 2:33 to go. And unlike a lot of other football teams, they just ran the ball down Buffalo's throat with like 2:33 to go, which is insane to me, because it's like, you would think like most coaches go, okay, now our quarterback's going to drop back like every snap of this drive, maybe at least until the 2-minute warning, if not the entire drive, and it's just going to march us down. And to Jared Parker's credit, I think he knows deep down that Kilcrease isn't maybe capable of accomplishing that. So they really ride Tay Meadows, the running back, and then he eventually, with 45 seconds to go, rips off the game-winning 20-yard touchdown run on a 3rd and 4, and sends Troy to 2-2. It was debatable whether they were going to win another game this year the way that they had been playing. And
Yeah.
they come out and beat a MAC school. So, we're going to give credit where credit's due. Kilcrease goes 14 of 24 for 148 and a touchdown. And then Meadows had 68 yards on 14 carries, and then ultimately the game-winning touchdown. I thought, it didn't start great. Obviously, they were down 17-0 entering the with, basically 15 minutes to go left in the game. They rally, they score 3 straight touchdowns. You get a Kilcrease run for a touchdown, a passing touchdown to Ra Thomas, and then ultimately that Meadows 20-yard score. Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams, including probably my own, would have just rolled over and kind of let the other team do whatever they wanted to do. Down 17 points in the fourth quarter. But again, credit to Troy, they didn't. Maybe Jared Parker has bought himself a little bit of leeway. But I'm still interested to see what this Troy team looks like come conference play time, because they're not a great team, but also, like we said at the top, the conference itself isn't exactly sterling at this point. So,
I mean, in points of that fourth quarter, it felt like this was the team that we saw under John Summerall, because this is how the fourth quarter went. It was first play, Buffalo scores a field goal to go up 17 points. Troy then goes down, scores a touchdown. Buffalo 3 and out. Troy gets another touchdown. Now it's 14-17, forces another 3 and out. They then have to punt right back. 3 and outs. They forced 3 Buffalo 3 and outs on consecutive drives in this fourth quarter. I mean, that is just incredibly gutsy. And really, really hats off to that. Tucker Kilcrease, as you said, this is probably, granted, this is not a high bar, but maybe the best game we saw out of him this year. And on that last drive, they looked to Tay Meadows, and that was excellent clock management. But before that, it was Tucker Kilcrease. In the fourth quarter, he went 9 for 15, 46 rushing yards. They were leaning on him, and he was, again, not exceptional. 9 for 15 will absolutely get the job done, but that is not Heisman Conference Player of the Year level by any means. But I mean, he was getting it done. And so we now know that he has a ceiling. He has a startable winning game ceiling. But where was this for the first 3 quarters? Where was it through the first 3 weeks of the season? And that remains to be seen. Who does Troy have next week? Because, I mean, that's going to kind of depend or determine what the trajectory is. They take the week off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they take the week off, and then they come back and play South Alabama, who just lost to Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, so I mean, this could be the inflection point for a Troy team that, again, does not have a world beater ceiling, but may have a bowl game, a bowl win ceiling. And this could be the inflection point.
Maybe.
Who knows? Something good. This was an easy one. James Madison, 31-13 over Liberty. Good to beat Liberty. As always, we'd like to see that. There are a lot of really good things in this win. Io Adei and Wayne Knight each played really, really good games. They've got 2 really good backs in that backfield. Neither, up until this game, were really seeing like a full workload. It's not that they were splitting it with each other. They just were not really getting the snaps or getting the touches. Both got, starting running back level touches. Let me make sure I got the number right, but I think it's 17 and 13 for Knight and Adei. They go 89 and 87 yards between the pair. But the real big.
Hold on one sec. I know what you said about the running backs. According to Bob Chesney after the game, George Pettaway, who's their starting running back, was dealing with, quote, a muscle thing, whatever that means. Very, very telling from Bob Chesney. But yeah, like you said,
thanks, Bob.
Adei and Wayne Knight, aka Newman, were great at kind of carrying the load in this one.
Yeah, they picked up that slack excellently, but the real win, because again, this is a going into the game 1-2, now 1-3 Liberty team. This is not the Liberty team that everyone became familiar with several years ago. What really James Madison deserves, and Chesney deserve a real round of applause for, is playing only one quarterback. Matthew Sluka did not take a single snap in this game. And wouldn't you know, James Madison looks better offensively for it. Alonzo Barnett, we were really worried that maybe he rushed himself back or the team rushed him back early. He goes 17 for 25, 213, a touchdown and a pick. His QBR 83.2. Also ran the ball 5 times for 45 yards. This is the decisiveness that we were looking for out of the quarterback position all season long, because we knew that Alonzo Barnett should be the quarterback one, and it was cute that you were trying this Lucas stuff. But James Madison is so much for the better now that experiment and playing around with that is over. That is my, frankly, biggest positive of the week, because the best team finally figured out their quarterback situation that they put themselves in.
The thing about the quarterback situation, and I guess I should have elaborated on this point last week, but I'm going to get to it now. The thing about the quarterback situation is I don't even mind if they decide, because Georgia Southern did this back in the day when they still ran like the spread option. Every third drive went to the second string quarterback, like just to kind of mix things up. And I wouldn't mind if Sluka got an entire drive to himself. But what was killing their momentum was it would be like Alonzo Barnett throws an 8-yard completion. Sluka comes in and runs a 1-yard, up the middle, doesn't get the first down. Barnett has to come out for a play and then go back in on 3rd and 1 and basically pick up the first down, or like anything along those lines. That's what they did against Louisville. It was like, there's just it's impossible for any quarterback to like get any level of consistency or like in a rhythm when it's constantly like, okay, Barnett, you've run 2 plays. Now let Sluka go in. Now Sluka's run 2 plays. Now Barnett, you run 2 plays. It's just, it doesn't work. Like if you want to give a guy an entire drive or have Sluka work as a wildcat quarterback, that's totally fine. But this thing where you don't even give a guy like a full series to himself just doesn't, it's impossible.
They were running that offense, or at least the quarterback situation, how I ran my teams when I was a soccer coach at the YMCA.
Yeah.
It was, all right, I know you just scored a hat trick, but you just hit your minutes allotment for the week, buddy. Come on, have a seat.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad for James Madison that is in the rear view, because it ups their ceiling. And we saw this against Liberty. This is probably the most comprehensive game against, again, not great competition, but better competition than they've had.
Yeah. So my next positive here, I guess today the theme is me giving credit to teams that I slammed last week. My other one is Coastal Carolina. They come out and basically their defense dominated Bishop Davenport, who did not play well for South Alabama. He was 22 of 36, 197 through 2 picks. Tad Hudson didn't exactly light it up stats wise. He completed under or just about half of his passes, but he did throw 2 touchdowns. Javin Simpkins ran for 84 yards and a score. Their defense kind of won them the day because, to come out and be down 14-7 at half, you're like, all right, here we go again. Here's the typical like Coastal thing. And then they rally. They score 31 points in the second half. It's kind of the same thing as Troy a little bit, but to a greater extent, where it's like this team just woke up in the second half and just decided like, no, we're going to go out and get this win. Like Davenport, South Alabama's not playing very well. Outside of Devin Voisin and Keenan Phillips and Kentrell Bullock, like they don't really have a lot of contributors, and Davenport's going to have one of these games every once in a while where he's just, I know we talked about it in the preseason. Maybe it's time to give Zach Pyron a look like for next week or something. I mean, they're 1-3. They start out conference play with a loss to Coastal, who we've said is probably, along with Marshall, kind of in the basement of the East Division. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do a positive and a negative here. Like negative, you could go Bishop Davenport or, anybody on that South Alabama team, because frankly, Coastal's not world beaters by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Yeah, and it gets tough. I think next week will be, obviously this team played Tulane. Obviously this team played Auburn. But get something a little closer to its level in North Texas. A good 4-0 North Texas team with FBS wins over Washington State and Army. Like that needs to be that last game before your real conference. I know we just played the conference, but the rest of the conference slate begins. That needs to be where you figure it out. We need to see, all right, Bishop Davenport, are you capable of being the consistent guy? I liked what he did against Auburn. I thought he looked pretty good. He wasn't a world beater against Tulane, but he made sure. I mean, they only lost by 2 points there. Against Morgan State, I don't care. But realistically, I like what Bishop.
Didn't you say in that game they only won because they forced like 3 turnovers that they got 17 points off of?
Oh, I mean, that was not a deserved. I'm not going to say not a deserved win. They won the damn game, but
right.
This is an FCS team. Like my main point, this North Texas game has to be like you figure it out now, or much like with Troy, this is the inflection point where you realize we couldn't get over the hump here, and we just were never able to the rest of the year. Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. I'll go with my other real positive takeaway. All of a sudden, Marshall and Tony Gibson have 2 wins. Again, we want to contextualize. These are not world-beating wins against Middle Tennessee or against Eastern Kentucky. But all of a sudden, this team has won 2 straight games by high margins. They face Louisiana next week, a really bad Louisiana team. So this could be 3 straight wins for a Marshall team that, I don't know, I thought I was pretty down on. The team had just so much turnover. Luckily, they got it early in the cycle with how Charles Huff left. But, I mean, they replaced the pieces of that offense that made it go. They obviously lose Mike Green, who's now playing in the NFL. You lose some other pieces on that defense that are now, elsewhere, including Southern Miss. Marshall looks really good. I'm having trouble identifying still what about them could make this Marshall team good. What about this Marshall team is going to win them games if they were to, go on a tear or become bowl eligible? What is going to win them those games? Because they're doing a lot of things pretty well, but nothing exceptionally. The run defense, I think, is jumping out to me from a numbers perspective, from a totals perspective, but that's kind of hard to tell this week against Middle Tennessee, a team that's historically very pass heavy. And then you also include the game against Georgia where you get your doors get blown off. So those skew the numbers in both directions. But I right now, this Tony Gibson looks like he's put together like just a really well-rounded football team that in a conference that is very weak, that might just be James Madison and a long pile of crap before the rest of the group. They're positioning themselves in these early weeks to be, maybe not above the pile of crap, but certainly not below it.
Well, okay. All right, hold on. I want to give Marshall credit, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So I think the thing, if they can replicate this, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be jumping off the page stat-wise, if Carlos Del Rio Wilson can be that kind of steadying force for them at the quarterback spot, I think that would go an extremely long way to making them at least a competitive team, if not one that, we got tweets in the preseason from the people who didn't tell us, that we needed to do terrible things to ourselves, told us that Marshall, the expectation was at minimum 6 wins. And I'm like, from what I saw in the first 2 weeks, I'm like, you lose to Georgia, I'll cut you some slack. Like every team in this conference would lose to Georgia. Like that's not really an argument. Losing to an FCS call up in year 1 in week 2, pretty rough. There's not really any way to kind of sugarcoat that. Now, if Carlos Del Rio Wilson can continue to, again, keep them steady at the quarterback spot and not just be all over the place, that would be huge. He's not going to throw 4 touchdowns every single week. Sorry to rain on Thundering Herd fans' parades. However, this is what I want to ask you. So we said, you said they play Louisiana next week, which is, okay. Let me read off the games they play after, because they have a pretty brutal schedule this year. They kind of catch the worst of all worlds. And if Louisiana was good, this would be an absolute like gauntlet. So after Louisiana, I want you to tell me what game you feel like Marshall can definitely win this game. They play Old Dominion.
No,
they play Texas State.
Winnable.
You think so?
I think so. I wasn't wowed by Texas State this week. It took them a lot longer than it should have to get off the ground against Nichols. And as we'll talk about, as we saw this week with another team that's built in the same archetype, and if you've listened to the show, you know exactly who we're talking about, because we talk about it every week, about how Texas State and one other team in the West are built identically from like a roster, philosophy. Yeah, roster construction, roster philosophy standpoint. Texas didn't wow me this week. I think, again, if Carlos Del Wilson, I'm a sample size guy, won 18 for 22 game when he had 9 completions the rest of the season, isn't going to, have me swinging his flag. But if he puts up performances similar to that, that's a consistency that can beat Texas State.
Sure. Okay, so after Texas State, I feel they can definitely beat Coastal on October 30th, the night before Halloween. Like Coastal is still like, yeah, they won this week, but you still have no idea what you're getting from them on a weekly basis. Like Tad Hudson's all over the place. Then you get James Madison. That's not happening. At Georgia State, they could probably win that game. But then you close at App and then Georgia Southern at home in the finale. And I have had my criticisms of Georgia Southern, but I'm like, are they going to be able to score enough points to keep up with Georgia Southern? And I just mean that from like, yes, on a weekly basis, Georgia Southern could give up 56 points to anybody, and I wouldn't blink an eye because their defense sucks. But are they, like, if you just look at it from like a general perspective, like the last couple games, Georgia Southern has scored like 40 plus against, I know, an FCS team in Maine, but then also Jacksonville State. I don't know. It's tough for me to be like, I think there's like 5 wins on this schedule. Like, I think
remaining or total?
In total, like, I think, no, definitely not remaining. Like that would require them to beat like Old Dominion, James Madison. Like, I don't know, but I think they could beat Coastal in theory. I think they could beat Georgia State in theory. I think they could beat App. Maybe App is, again, another one of these teams where it's like, we got an interesting email from a listener this week who is an App State fan. And he said that from his perspective and people he knows that root for App, that they actually think that JJ Cole, who hasn't played a whole lot and has been injured, is actually better than AJ Swan, but he just hasn't been healthy enough to take the snaps. So if by the end of the season, JJ Cole's the starter and they look way better, like, that's even further away from reality. And then, like I said, they play Georgia Southern in the finale. Georgia Southern's terrible on the road, but the one thing they can do is kind of score. So it's like, can we bank on, them to put up 38, 42 points against, on a weekly basis? Like, that. I'm not saying they can't. That's just a question that I have about them.
That's why I don't, again, I've readjusted, but only done so with hesitancy, because the wins are against Middle Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky, right? And that's where the points are. Is it Central Missouri? I still haven't fully Missouri State. I'm still like, I still haven't caught on to their name yet because they're so fresh to the FBS. That loss really stings for me. That really gives me a lot of hesitancy. But as I said, I think this team, when we talk this time next week, this team will have had 3 consecutive wins. I think we'll then have an even better perspective on if Carlos Del Rio Wilson can be that guy, or if this was a really good week. So they have the upward momentum from me. But I think we're both on the same page about doing so cautiously.
Yeah. Do you want to do your first negative?
Yes. And I'm going to get into the one I really want to talk about because I teased this to you before we started recording. I learned something about Southern Miss and about Charles Huff that I need to examine moving forward as I watch Southern Miss, but may radicalize me as Charles Huff possibly having one of the biggest flaws in all of college football. And I say that with no exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, looking at this game, which Southern Miss lost 30-20 to Louisiana Tech. The Golden Eagles took 4 trips to the red zone. They had a 38-yard field goal from the 20 on 4th and 3, missed a 37-yarder on 4th and 3 from the 19. Turnover on downs, had 4 plays from the 1-yard line, turnover on downs. 4th down and 9 from the 12, 30-yard field goal. Out of their 4 red zone trips, they get 6 points. Charles Huff teams in the red zone are historically among the worst in the country. This year, Charles Huff's Southern Miss Golden Eagles, has a red zone scoring percentage of 72%, which is in the bottom 20% of college football.
Wow.
In his 4 years at Marshall, in the red zone by scoring percentage, Marshall was in the bottom 30th percentile, bottom 11th percentile, bottom 4th percentile, and 61st percentile. He had a above average year in his first season, but every year after that was in the bottom third, if not the bottom 15%.
Even last year when they had Braylon Braxton?
30th percentile.
That's tough.
It's tough.
With the best quarterback in the Sun Belt?
In the over those 4 years at Marshall, this is excluding teams that joined FBS in those 4 years. So of FBS teams with a full 4-season sample size, it is the 7th worst red zone percentage over those 4 years while Charles Huff was there. The teams that he beat out were Boston College, Temple, Rice, Colorado State, Northwestern, Southern Miss, and Florida International. So, I believe that's 7 teams he was better than, 8th from the bottom. Those 7 teams had a combined winning percentage of those 4 seasons of 34%. His teams in the red zone are historically as good as teams that win 34% of their games. And again, this I learned and baffled me. Because last year they won the conference. They won the conference, and granted, there's the context of the position Louisiana was in, but it was not even close. Not even close. They had the best quarterback, some of the best weapons, one of the best offensive lines,
the best pass rusher who almost had as many sacks as some teams in the Sun Belt did.
Right, and. Again, that baffles me. Right now, Southern Miss, bottom 20% in red zone efficiency in the country. And that's my negative, is how poorly they perform this week. And moving forward, this is what I have to watch when I watch Southern Miss games. Is it the play call? I mean, twice they kicked a field goal on 4th and 3. Is it aggressiveness? Is he too conservative in those situations? But even when he's not conservative in those situations, 4 plays from the 1, you get stuffed.
Can I ask you a question about this team specifically? I can't speak to previous Charles Huff teams except for, like last year. Do you think this year that has anything to do with either their inability or unwillingness to run the football? Because I know they were down big. It was 30-10 at halftime. But I don't think they've had a 100-yard rusher yet this season through 4 games. And this game, their leading rusher was Robert Briggs, who had 9 carries for 47 yards. And I'm going to do your favorite game, take as long as rush away. If you do that, it's 8 carries for 28, 26, something like that. So the other guys on the team, okay, Matt Jones averaged 3 yards a carry. Braylon Braxton himself, I guess you got to throw that one out because of sack yardage, which still sucks. Jalen Carter was the only one that was actually efficient with his carries, 3 carries, 16 yards. I don't know if it's the Blake Anderson effect of like, we're just going to chuck it. And because they do have the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, more times often than not, it's going to work itself out.
Sure.
But when it comes time for games like this is what kind of gives me pause a little bit. And this was like, maybe they're not going to win the West, like in the preseason, because I'm like, last year, AJ Turner was like low key. If Ahmad Hardy didn't exist, we'd be talking about AJ Turner as like the best running back probably in the conference. But Ahmad Hardy was just far and away better than everyone else. And it's like, the idea that they're just going to walk into a new running back that's going to give them that same level of production, because Huff has historically been a running backs coach at like Penn State and coach Saquon Barkley and stuff. I guess that was too much of the benefit of the doubt, but I even kind of raised that concern a little bit in their preview. It's like, who of these guys is going to do it? And the answer so far has been nobody. And I don't know if it's like a philosophy thing with Blake Anderson of like, we need to throw the ball way more than we've been running it, but they need to get more balanced and figure out who's going to produce out of this running game.
I think I'll come back with an answer next week. This will require me to find a resource that I don't know where to find it, but I'm going to watch the cut up, and I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to tell you, here are their play calls from inside the 20. Here's their down and distance. I'll do this year. They only played 3-4 games this year. So that'll be really easy. If I've got the time, I'll go back last year and look as well. Because, again, this is something I only dawned on me when I crunched the numbers myself 2 hours ago. So this has been a very I feel in shock still, because this really challenges what I thought about Charles Huff and thought about Charles Huff teams, is that they were at the very least competent offensively, but it seems like his team cannot do the most basic of offensive tasks, which is scored in the red zone.
Can I give you just really quick, and then we can move off of this, an anecdotal example? Okay. Yes. So the first quarter, one of the times they settled for a field goal in the red zone. Here are their red zone possessions. Starting with 1st and 10 from the 27, they eventually make their way into the red zone during this possession. 1 yard run by Robert Briggs, 6 yard pass by Braylon Braxton to Robert Briggs, incompletion on 3rd and 3, 4th and 3, kick a 38-yard field goal.
All right. I'll just jump in right there. Again, this is the one possession from this one game and cannot speak to the 5-year history of poor red zone offense, 4-year history, excluding his first season of Charles Huff. If you know that you're going to kick the field goal on 4th and 3, why are you passing it when you're giving? I mean, it's classic football. Of that pass, only one of the 3 options is positive.
Well, okay. I'm sorry to keep doing this. Let's do a second one. All right. Second quarter, they once again, they start from outside the red zone. They work their way in. Here is their series from the 26. So roughly the same kind of down and distance. 1st and 10, 1 yard run, Braylon Braxton. 2nd and 9, 6 yard pass by Braylon Braxton to Micah Davis. 3rd and 3, incomplete, Braylon Braxton, Micah Davis. They miss a 37-yard field goal.
I think we solved it right there. If you know that you're going to kick the field goal on 4th and 3, why are you taking the pass? Again, I didn't do my research. I don't know what this pass looks like. Is it a screen? Is it a slant? Are we going for the long ball and trying to take the short yardage on 3rd down? But as you say that bewilders me. Is that not the solution?
I could do one more that's going to drive you nuts.
Oh my God.
This one's going to kill you. Do you want to hear this one?
Yeah.
Third quarter, they get 1st and 10 from the 13. 1 yard run by Matt Jones. Incomplete pass from Braylon Braxton to Caden Morris on 2nd and 9. 3rd and 9, incomplete from Braylon Braxton to Matt Jones. 30-yard field goal kicked from the 12 on 4th and 9.
Again, so I guess now the question is, we have to chart where all of his field goals are coming from and on what down and distance, because it seems like the guy, based on that play calling, it would appear as though Charles Huff is shocked that it's all of a sudden fourth down. And it's like, oh, it's fourth down. I guess I have to kick a field goal now. You could have done something to put yourself into a 4th and 1. You could have done something to put yourself into a 4th and 2. Am I overreacting?
No, and Blake Anderson historically has been a really good offensive play caller. Now, I don't know. I know that when he moved out west and went and coached Utah State, he kind of lost his like mojo there. I don't know if the game has kind of passed him by from like what he was running in like 2016 at Arkansas State or not. But yeah, one of two things is true. Either you didn't do a good enough job, Charles Huff, of getting a running back in here that we can actually make work, or we are way too pass heavy in the red zone. Like we're so pass heavy. Pete Carroll is blushing. He's like, whoa, I wouldn't even do that. Like let's not get crazy here, guys. But I don't know. Like they need to figure it out and soon, because this could end up being the difference between representing the West, what has been now kind of a weaker West division, and or just watching at home as Texas State plays JMU or whoever,
Yeah.
So I don't know. They need to figure it out. We got to move on. I'm sorry, but
no, that's crazy.
The more I kept clicking through, I was like, field goal, field goal. This is insane. All right, I'm gonna do my first negative here. It's Arkansas State. The things that we had said about their defense, the chickens have come home to roost, at least for 1 week. I guess you could say the owls have come home to hoot, because Kennesaw State puts up 21 points in the first quarter and basically buries the Red Wolves from the jump, which is even crazier considering the fact that, say what you want, Dexter Williams started the season as Kennesaw's starting quarterback, and they were carved up by a guy named Amari Odom, who threw for 308 yards and a score and ran for an additional 100 yards by himself and a touchdown. So basically what happened was Kennesaw jumped on them from like early, and Arkansas State was kind of scrambling to catch up. And then, it's 21-7 at halftime. Kennesaw adds another touchdown. It's 28-14 at the end of the third quarter. And then that's basically the football game right there. So yeah, I mean, this is all of the defensive issues that we've highlighted. I mean, I guess combined with the fact that their offense hasn't been able to, replicate the kind of success that they've had in recent years. I'm pulling up the box score. Am I crazy, or has Corey Rucker and Corey Rucker had 2 catches for 4 yards in this game? I think Jaquez Cross is injured and hasn't played in a couple of weeks. So the big 3-man offense that they had in theory is either Rutgers injured and isn't producing, or their teams are just smothering him and daring other people to win. And then if Cross isn't playing either, then you're down to your backup running back, who looks to be either Devin Spencer or Kenyon Clay, who, no offense to them, are not as good as Jaquez Cross. And Jalen Rayner's play is kind of suffering for it as well.
Yeah, Corey Rucker thus far through 4 games, 8 catches, 109 yards. I don't know what's changed for him, because this was the guy. Something that also surprised me in watching this game, I was shocked to see how little this team uses Jalen Rayner on design runs. This guy is incredibly mobile. He is to some degree Colton Joseph light in terms of his ability to pass the ball very well, but it is also just incredibly gifted with his legs. Granted, again, Old Dominion's offense is very geared, is almost Georgia Tech-ish in how it's geared for quarterback rushing yards and wants to use him as an additional running option. It's a little apples to oranges, especially then as you compare Arkansas State, which is a team that wants to throw the ball 40 times a game. So it is apples to oranges. But I think when you have Cross out of the game, when Corey Rucker is not producing, be it because he's doubled or because he just can't get open, you have to lean on your other playmakers. and your other playmakers are not Hunter Summers, who had 8 catches for 114 yards. And it's not Devin Spencer, who had 14 carries for 61. It's Jalen Raynor. And you need to be utilizing him more than he ran the ball 9 times. He only had 4 designed quarterback runs.
Yeah.
I think you have to lean on him more than that.
Yeah.
And that feels like a failure in play calling.
Yeah.
If you're new to the show and we're wondering, well, who is this team that, just like Texas State, is geared for high power offense but can't play a lick of defense? It's this Arkansas State team. When Kennesaw State played, I think it was Merrimack last week, they scored as many points as they did against Arkansas State. This is an FCS level defense. Merrimack actually held Kennesaw State to less yards.
Yeah.
This fits my anti-Butch Jones agenda, man.
I think we all, even Phil Steele, like when I had that talk with him, I think we were all like, a lot of the stuff that we looked at numbers wise at the end of the season last year for Arkansas State is not, you can't replicate some of those wins. Like they're just, when they won, it was like kind of close. And when they lost, sometimes they just got their absolute doors blown off. And it's like, yeah, that having a negative point differential at the end of the season, like you can say, oh, that doesn't matter for 2024. It matters in the long run. You know, that type of stuff, like you keep doing it, it's gonna come back to bite you. And I think that's what we're seeing also from defensively. I mean, they're still just not there from a defensive. I mean, one guy, Odom, had 409 yards of offense by himself between passing and rushing. And he didn't even really need anybody else other than the pass catchers to join in. So
yeah, 4. Let me make sure I'm counting right. 1, 2, 3, 4 of Arkansas State's 5 conference wins last year came by 1 possession. Right. Is this evil Sean Clark? Because Sean Clark won a lot of those like coin flippy games and came out on the good side of it.
Sean Clark took a team to the Sun Belt Championship game.
So this might be the dark side of the moon. When it comes.
He's non-bald Clay Helton. Clay Helton with slightly more hair.
My second bad, I won't spend a ton of time on this because when you look at the scoreline, I mean, and this was a good team that they played. Vanderbilt beats Georgia State 70-21. Not terribly shocking, a little disappointing. This is the team most points ever allowed by a Georgia State team. But the real negative here, this team through 4 weeks leads the country in penalties per game. Someone's got to do it, but it's not like everyone in the country is sitting at 7 and you've got 7.2. 10.7 penalties per game, and a lot of these are personal and a lot of these are procedural. These are not holdings that are going to get called. These are not, pass interference things that are going to get called. These are false starts. We had the illegal snap last week. These are roughings, stuff that is, granted, as someone who has literally never played a snap of tackle football, maybe I shouldn't say that on air, hurts my credibility, but feels very avoidable. Feels very, very avoidable. And Del McGee needs to atone to this or address this incredibly quickly because he, to this point, granted, he was dealt a poor hand that was made even poorer by how late in the cycle he was hired, has been so much talk about the potential of this program and about being in Atlanta and the unique advantage of that. And he has just kind of crapped the bed. No one expected you to beat Vanderbilt again, let alone the first time, but no one expected it again. Something needs to change. This was an embarrassment. And to touch on, with James Madison did this same thing and they figured it out. We got to stop with the wishy-washy, hinky-honky bull crap at quarterback. Is it Cameron Brown? Do not name Cameron Brown the starter and then go TJ Finley, right? Or name him the captain, rather. Do not name him the captain. I don't know what the advantage is here. Pick a guy, stick with him, lose with him, or win with him. I've said it previously. I give Georgia State a little bit more merit because it's a real quarterback competition. Because they're still trying to figure out who the heck can even play on that campus. One of the biggest student bodies in FBS, and not a guy can throw the football. We are 14 games, not 16, 18 games into Del McGee, and I'm already really losing patience with him.
Yeah. All right. So my last negative here, Louisiana allows Eastern Michigan to walk down the field with 41 seconds to go and kick or 47 seconds, I guess, rather, and kick a game-winning field goal. Zeke, I'd like to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this maybe speaks to Michael Desormeau's. You could say it's the defense. I wouldn't argue with you at all.
Sure.
Because letting a guy letting Noah Kim, who was a backup at a bad Coastal team last year, piece you up down the field en route to a game-winning field goal is bad enough. I think this speaks to Desormeau, his ability to kind of teach his team like in-game situations. So let me take you through this. So at one point, they had the ball, Louisiana, 51 seconds to go, tied 31 all. Or sorry, it was tied 31, or it was 24, 31, 24. Okay. With 10 seconds to go, or 47 seconds to go, they run a touchdown in from 10 yards out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you not tell your guy maybe to slow down and not just run? I guess in theory you would go, okay, our defense should be able to keep a team out of field goal range in 41 seconds. But it just feels like, Zylan Perry scores that 10-yard score, 2nd and 10 with 47 seconds to go. And I'm kind of like, yeah, they probably let you do it. Like, that's probably what they wanted, because you tie it up and then they just are like, okay, if we don't and we put up like a full defense, we might not touch the ball again until overtime. And like, that's not what we want when Noah Kim's throwing the ball over the yard.
I don't know. I feel like this comes up every year with no matter what level of football you're at. Is like, what do you do in that situation? I don't know if I'm going to put the blame on Michael Desormeau, because I'm not certain there's a ton of blame to go to him for. With that said, Louisiana fans, looks like Billy Napier is going to have some availability pretty soon,
and you don't have to pay him that much.
So
he's going to be making a lot of money from Florida.
Yeah, UL nosedive. I mean, there's going to be the what if of Walker Howard, but I mean, it's not like he did anything in those. Like, he played what, like a quarter, not even. But it didn't look great.
Nope.
So Daniel Beal, what's up, man?
It's just so funny. Like, you look at the win chart or whatever, and I'm trying to get the top of it. It's so finicky, but it literally, there's just like a straight up spike, and then it just goes straight down when it's like they tied it up 31-31, and then it's like, oh, guess what? Noah Kim throws a pass to Nick Devereaux or whatever, and there goes the chart right in the hell.
Oh. Yeah. They got to figure that out. UL 1-3 through 4 games is not
Daniel Beal, 20 of 33, 222 and 2 picks.
Had a third pick that was called back for roughing the passer. So
it might be lunchtime, if you know what I'm saying.
Here's the thing. Can I skip straight to dinner? Let's run through the rest of the slate from the week. We touched on more than half of them.
I think there's only like 2. I think there's only 3 that we didn't talk about.
All right, yeah. Outstanding games. Georgia Southern beats Maine 45-17. I'll let you go on that, but it felt like it took way too long for liftoff on this game.
Took way too long. JC French threw a pick that wasn't really his fault, although it was kind of a bad decision. They got this third receiver, or Josh Dallas has been injured, so he's been out. They had this third receiver, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and that's probably for good reason. But he was running this like in route in the red zone, and even the announcer was like, in a normal situation, you just sit down in the coverage between 2 guys and let the quarterback hit you in the chest, and then you kind of turn and run. He ran himself into a defender and pops the ball straight up in the air, and a main defender gets a running start and catches the ball and is just he's on the other 20 before like JC French knows what planet he's on. Yeah, it took way too long. At one point, Maine early in this game was averaging 12 yards per carry. That obviously came down once the score kind of shifted in Georgia Southern's favor. I don't know, man. I said this on Twitter, and I'm sure there's some Georgia Southern fans who are like sunshine pumpers out there that are just they're going to disagree with me no matter what I say. But I think I'm at the point where I'm like, this season's not going anywhere with this defense. So you've got this freshman Weston Bryan who's 6'3", 250 pounds, and they're using him like Tim Tebow in his first year at Florida. Like he just exclusively kind of runs Wildcat. But he threw a pass in this game that was a perfect lob that hit Dalen Cobb in the face mask. It was so good of a throw, and Cobb like tripped and it hit him in the face and bounced off. And I'm like, if this team's not going anywhere, just put the young guy in and build for next year after you fire your defensive coordinator, because you know where the issue is. But you're not going to do better than 7-5, 6-6 with a defense that's allowing probably more yards than any defense in college football. Like, there's just no way.
Sure.
I mean, they look better in the second half. Obviously, they held Maine to 3 points. They outscored them 28-3. But yeah, like you said, it took way too long. And a good team that if they play JMU next week, a good team is just going to blow them out in the first half while they're like fiddling around trying to figure out what they're doing with themselves.
Yeah. Other games this week: Texas State 35, Nichols 3. Not a ton to add. I thought, again, it took Texas State a little too long to get moving. It was 7-3 at the end of the first, but then they scored 21 points in the second quarter and ultimately romp FCS Nichols. Not a ton to add there. But a game we didn't talk about that probably should have been included in our good. I don't know how long we want to spend on it just because of time, but ULM beats UTEP 31-25. ULM is, again, all of a sudden looking like as a team that's been in the basement as of late, is starting to look like flirting, like they could flirt with a bowl, depending on how the rest of the schedule shakes out. They're 2-1 through 3 games. Aiden Armenta and Hunter Herring still ain't the thing. But
my only thing that I would push back on is the way that last year started and the way that it ended. Didn't they start? They started like 5-1 last year. Do you remember that?
I'm looking right now.
I mean, they had beaten like JMU. Like they beat like some good teams. I mean, their only loss was to like Texas in like week 3.
5-1 with the loss to number 1 Texas.
Right. So that's what I mean is like,
sure.
And my concern that I will hold until they get deep into conference play is that they do that again, where they start hot and then just completely lose all momentum and backslide the way that they did last year. Because think about the makeup of this team. It's almost the same team without the best player from last year's team, and the same quarterback, the same kind of level of receiving weapons. That just gives me a lot of pause. I think this could go. I'm just kind of waiting for the eventual slide, because I feel like the way that this team is constructed, it could go bad pretty quickly. Like, not a lot of teams are going to let you get away with beating them with 14 passing attempts.
Yeah, and UTEP played a pretty sloppy game late. They scored 2 fourth quarter touchdowns, but then on their 2 ensuing drives, which would have been their chances to tie and then win the game, threw interceptions on both. So this was not a clown question here, but did ULM win or did UTEP lose? So
I mean, I think ULM won, but it's like, do we know that UTEP's a good team?
No, we don't. I mean, this is a 1-3 UTEP team.
Right. And I mean, I'm looking at the win probability chart, and it's like UTEP never got over 50% from 26 seconds left in the first quarter on.
Sure.
Like, ULM just kind of owned the game, and it's like that Malachi Nelson, 4 touchdowns, those look great on paper. However, when you throw 2 picks and your team is not really in the game not in the game from the perspective of you're not controlling it from like the first quarter, the end of the first quarter on, it's like, okay, a lot of teams can kind of just salt the clock away. And, they scored, but it wasn't like they were just throwing the ball at will. I mean, it was a lot of we're running the ball a lot, limiting Arminta's opportunities. We don't want him to throw us out of a game, stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like I kind of saw this last year, and I felt a lot better about a Ahmad Hardy ULM team than I do about a Braylon McReynolds ULM team. No offense to him.
Yeah, we'll get a chance. They play Arkansas State next week.
They'll probably beat Arkansas State.
Yeah, and then you get Northwestern, and then you get Coastal. So shoot, this could be actually it would mimic last year 5-1 ULM team through 6 games.
Right.
Yeah, sweet. Well, that was the slate for the week. Some good, a lot of bad, even more ugly. It was something, man.
It certainly was. Zeke, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. I'll follow up on this Charles Huff stuff. The indictment of accusations of fraud watch of Charles Huff. If you know where I can watch these cut-ups or all 22 or something, so I can really chart these red zone trips, let me know, because again, I came into this very confused and very surprised, and then you gave me just that base level. Oh, they're throwing it on 3rd and 3 in the red zone. And
they're throwing it on all 3 downs in the red. Yeah. Like as soon as they get to the red zone, their running back might as well not be on the field.
So yeah, so it went from bad to worse. And I will follow up on that on both our Twitter at Warm Weather Fans, but my personal at Zeke Palermo.
As always, you can email the show warmweatherfans@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at warmweatherfans. You can find me on X at Watch the Stone. Zeke, we good? Nothing else. Like
we have a programming note. Do want to add Matt Miguez, who is our 3rd co-host, founded the show with us. Told us today that he'll be stepping away. Obviously, disappointing. Like Matt, want him to be a part of this, but just didn't work out schedule-wise and with what's going on. He is doing the, frankly, most important job in the world, and that is educating our youth. Salutes up to Matt for that. We appreciate you. And he will, hopefully be back in the future, at least to talk Louisiana.
All right. That does it for another edition of Warm Weather Fans.